Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I continue going along with spring. It's getting towards the finish line here, and other shows are going to be debuting, I would say, next week, but I still need to finish up spring, so we're going to be in that weird period where some stuff is done, some stuff is not, and usual rules apply. Dub shows only, so I may be a week, 2 weeks, or even multiple weeks, depending on stuff being delayed, out of the way. There are going to be spoilers, of course, so if you haven't seen the show up to said point, this is going to be, an ongoing feed of these things. So if you haven't seen the entire kind of spring lineup yet, go back to kind of the first episode to see where I started with, and then kind of work your way from there. And again, we're just kind of going off general thoughts. And in some instances, there may not be any updates at all. This is going to be a weird one because some of the shows were delayed an extra week, which was not fun. In Apothecary Diaries case, I want to say 2 weeks. So I didn't really get a new episode of Apothecary until yesterday. And it was honestly kind of frustrating because I had a lot I wanted to talk about. But Mau Mau being kidnapped by the Shisho clan and the Imperial army is now coming after them. But the story was more about Lowland and having been revealed. And, at last time I discussed this, they were talking about Lowland and what they were doing. This episode was kind of the repercussions of trying to escape or not trying to escape, or knowing that you've basically been outed as in a coup. What are people going to do? What is Mau Mau going to do against her captors? What is Lowland going to do to redeem herself? Stuff like that. And there's still, 2 or 3 episodes remaining, but the one that I was able to see was about Mau Mau basically not being afraid of anything, and then stuff getting set on fire. So there's definitely something building to the sense that, Lowland is not innocent. And it was crazy how she's trying to justify destroying a bunch of kids' lives, basically killing them, causing them to commit suicide over being captured and killed by the army. So she is no saint. And I think that was the expression here, because a lot of the episode is about Lowland's point of view and not really coming across in the most nice of ways, because let's face it, this is not a nice situation. Having spent weeks and months finally building to this point of who this character is, to finally see that veneer, crack, it was important. How do things wrap up? What is remaining left other than this crazy, this crazy coup that has gotten started? Well, sure seems to me like she doesn't want to be a part of it and is trying to get everybody to escape and to accept fate, but also take responsibility after so long of having just been a doormat. So who is going to get caught where, and who's going to be basically just left for dead? Because by all accounts, you would think Mau Mau would be alive. Otherwise, what the fuck is the rest of the show? This is her show. So who else gets captured? Who else dies? That's the big key to it. There's like 3-4 episodes remaining. So it's like, what crazy shit is remaining if this, torching an entire fortress and then killing children? Where do you go from there? It's like, Jesus. So they got more shit they can do, and they're gonna go for more. That's kind of insane. We got Black Butler, speaking of shows that are nearing its end. So this setup is escaping the forest. So they've done all the big reveals, save for one, I guess, which is Ciel, Sebastian, and the group trying to escape with Sieglinde, and then finding out that it wasn't just the mustard gas they were building. No, they were building a giant fucking tank. They decided to have a giant fucking tank at their disposal. So they honestly went as far as they could with this whole cover-up nonsense and, you know, being a military organization and creating gas and now basically testing a fucking giant-ass fucking tank in the middle of the late 18th century, or 19th century, excuse me. So I don't know when tanks were invented, but I can guarantee you I don't think that Sebastian and Ciel are happy dealing with it. And now you've got Grim Reapers from Germany, because of course you have it. And they specifically rule out Sasha, who is very, very, very intrigued by this whole death nonsense. That's kind of nuts, but I think there's still a couple episodes remaining, but they are definitely at the end game. This is the end of Act 3. And the same rules apply, just like Apothecary. Who makes it out alive? Obviously, all the main characters do, but do Sieglinde and Wolfram do? A lot of the other military people have not. They have definitely died, and they've gotten their comeuppance because, yeah. But, you know, a lot of this is just running out the clock at this point. 2 more episodes to go. I think I get one later today. You know, barring any more accidental missteps with the release schedule, because that is kind of frustrating. When you go on a weekly basis, you kind of expect a show. And this also happened with Kowloon Generic Romance. Was Apothecary was out for an extra week. Black Butler, I think, for a week. But maybe or maybe not. But I know Kowloon for sure missed a week. So I'm behind. And for whatever reason, it's fair enough. Delays happen. But when you're not used to them, when you're used to, it's this week, where is this week? Can I get to this week? The frustration is there. So I think it's reasonable. I'm not going to go, wah, it's dumb. But at the same time, it's like that internalization of, man, where's my show? Same thing. So getting to the end, you know, some people might even know how it ends already. That's the frustrating bit. It's like people who are watching the subversion probably already know how it ends. And I'm just kind of waiting it out. Let's see. I believe Atelier Meister's already done. Actually, no, it wasn't done. But yeah, suffice it to say, Kurt wins. Because of course he did. He did everything. He tied it up in a neat little bow, and everybody survived. It's fine. They did reference this character out of nowhere, this storyteller person who Kurt basically rewrote things. Could have fooled me. Where did this guy come from? Maybe it was a hook for a second season that may or may not happen. I don't think the show's that great to justify a second season, but they do throw in a couple of things. You know, not just Kurt saves the day again without even trying. That's obvious. The idea that he and Hilda are over, what was it, 12,000 or 1,200 years old? 12,000? I think it's 1,200 years old. So they are throwing in some interesting, cool things. And I do remember saying that this show was perfectly serviceable junk food tripe. And I enjoyed it. I did. I do enjoy it. And I think that's cool in that you need shows like this to prop up the better ones, because then you're like, oh, God, okay, so this is where my tolerance level is, and I'm kind of waffling back and forth. This is why this is good. This is why this is bad, you know, stuff like that. Let's see. Speaking of shows that didn't really get another episode, beginning after the end. They got an episode last week. They didn't get an episode this week. Ugh! I keep saying it. So this one, so they've been building the idea with beginning after the end was Arthur came home He's living with his family, who have been basically given home in a noble house, but people kind of know what, where, how with Arthur. They're starting to understand he's a little bit more than he lets on. The daughter of the Holsteas didn't have any special powers, so she feels jealous and shit, so he helps her out, which is nice. But then they go to this auction house thing, and this guy kind of hits on a thing right away. Almost seeing not quite who Arthur is or what he has a power set that's insane, but realizes that the mana beast is something special, and he wants to steal the mana beast that's essentially Arthur's pet at this point. Arthur says no. They get into a fight, and they almost get in trouble. But the king basically says, okay, I'll write this off as nothing happened because you pretty much fucking torched the dude. You scarred him for life because this super powerful conjurer dude gets beat up by this 8-year-old kid who can manipulate time and do all sorts of crazy shit. He actually somehow managed to imbue himself with his own original power as that king of death from the other world. So that's part of it too. The idea he almost exploded the fucking auction house by himself could have been a problem. But nobody's worse for wear other than that. It would have been nice to get another episode, though, to at least understand where things went from there. Again, I'm in a bit of a lurch because episodes in a lot of shows were cut. I only get one episode this week as opposed to two. The same thing with Kowloon Generic Romance. The next episode is tonight, hopefully, because Black Butler and Kowloon debut on Saturdays. But Kowloon, Yao Mei went out to Hong Kong to try and search out this thing that Kowloon doesn't exist, or people know that it exists, but if you're not aware of it for some time, you lose sight of it, and then, you know, people you know don't exist anymore, or it's a fake version of a thing, or was rebuilt, things like that. This cover-up thing. The episode that I saw where they got back into things, Yao Mei comes back, and there's a lot to do with intaking food or water from Kowloon so that you are aware of it. And if you don't, then you're still kind of apart from it. What does that even mean? Is it some psychosocial thing? Is it psychosomatic? Is it some brainwashing thing? Is it just it exists, so I believe it exists now? They don't specify it. They just say something's in the food that says this now exists. Living in the city allows you to exist. And there's still that like weird Kudo and Kujirai love each other, but they don't really, and they're trying to figure out who is, because the Kujirai from before is dead. But how does that work? How does that relationship still work? And just in that transition, I was like, there's still weird things that they've yet to reveal. I'm expecting a plot dump in the next episode or two from either Miyuki's dad or from somebody to answer all of these questions. Like, even Kudo himself might be the one that knows everything. But it's just like, what is going to happen? Is it just going to disappear? Is it just going to blink out of existence because we don't believe it anymore? Is it going to come real and then people are going to blow the shit up? It could be anything. All we really know is that something floating in the sky has helped create this thing known as Kowloon. Was it a military thing like Black Butler? Was it a weird experiment? Was it a social construct? Weird. That's what's cool about this, is that it's framed as a romance show, and it's staying that way. But they're digging into the concepts of what is real and what is fake and what does it matter, even this far in. And there's a lot to like here. and it's important that they stick the landing. And they only have a few episodes to go, and unless they go really fucking weird, I don't think they'll screw up. Let's see, Gorilla God's go-to girl. I said this a while back that I was a bit annoyed that they've stopped focusing on blessings, because the whole concept of the show is you're imbued with this animal's blessing, this animal god. So you get traits, or you get mannerisms, or you get special skills, or something of that nature. Well, they finally got around back to it, because they had this camping slash nights tryout thing on the beach. Actually, no, they did the camping thing earlier. Now they're doing the training thing on the beach. So they finally get around to it. There's a maritime thing, there's a running thing. It's basically like a field day, sports day kind of thing, to show off all of the things in the knight's quarters. But they finally show off, okay, this guy's good at swimming, so he has the dolphin or the whale blessing, or this person has this thing, so they have super flight or super skill, or they're finally started to show other characters with other skills doing other things. Because for so long it was, we have our 4 or 5 main characters and we have our main love story, let's stick with that. But the episode was nice about showing off, okay, this person can do this thing but they can't do that thing. That's kind of what I wanted from this, was an excuse to do a lot of weird gags with the animal blessings and animal powers. And then the episode after that was more of the romance between between Sophie and Louis, and it's fine. I like the idea that one of these characters is moving way too fast and has to stop himself, despite the fact that all signs really point to them, already having been close to each other. But these are lines that I shouldn't have crossed, and it's in a lesser show, it would have been more frustrating, I think. Like if this was a harem show that was played for like really lewd, and again, this is somewhat lewd, but it's fairly tame, But if this was like 20 episodes in, 30 episodes in, and they were pulling this shit, I'd probably be more annoyed. Or if these characters were a lot more like crude and just swearing at each other, I'd be like, just get on with this shit already. But these people are playing it very close, and I think that's in a way how romance does work. There is that weird, like, what line is too far too fast, and it could be different for different people. Some people just, yeah, we're already going there. Other people, nah, scale it back, please scale it back, because it's getting uncomfortable. And you do have to reference that, like, internally. And it's nice that these two characters are on the, a little bit of the scared side of things, that they don't cross too many paths. Because being around each other, holding hands, that's fine. But as soon as you like invite someone to your house, it's like, okay, I get what's going on here. But no, they stop themselves. If they do this again, right? If they just pull the same episode again in a different form, like 5 episodes from now, I'll be annoyed. It's like, you have to make consistent progress, and you have to know where that line is between, okay, we're just doing the status quo again, and it's really stupid. So yeah, I think the show is a little better when it's trying to focus on the blessing stuff, and also knowing when enough of the romance stuff is enough, because it is kind of half and half there, or even like 70-30 romance show and then 30 minutes kind of dumb comedy. But it's just in the same vein as like Unaware Atelier Meister. I like it enough, but I'm not gonna go out of your way to see this. You have to see it. It's not that good. It's good enough. Speaking of good enough, a couple of things, because I was worried that I wasn't going to have any episodes to really talk about, despite having, weeks to prep this, because shows were just so many episodes were just not available. But I was able to watch a couple of things recently that I wanted to talk about. Not at super length, but enough. One of them was Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle. I'm a big fan of Chobits. I'm a big fan of Holic. Was not really a fan of this. After about 4 or 5 episodes, I got up to about episode 10-ish, where they got to the kind of the second world that they traveled to, and I just started not paying attention. I did not want to watch 50-some episodes of this. It felt like a very, very bare bones fantasy thing with some, like, there's a smidge of the cool stuff that I was liking, the subversive, cool shit. But by and large, it's very, you know what you're getting. It's not very intricate and interesting. Like, even Chobits had those episodes in the middle where, okay, this is a bit more intense than I was expecting. There's not a lot to Tsubasa. It was like Clamp's attempt at just a basic ass shonen show. The difference being that, like, it was developed by the people who developed like Dot Hack Sign and Dot Hack Roots, because I think it was like right after they made Dot Hack Sign, so the animation studio and the singer songwriter composer. So it felt like Dot Hack, but not as good. So that was one of the things trying to hook me, but the characters were not very interesting. The main characters and the main leads only had so much that they were going through. I didn't really care about their plight so much. I didn't really care about the villain who would just sit there staring out in a portal somewhere. The only thing I cared about was the rare times when Yuko was on screen, because I'm like, yay, you're from a show I actually did like. You, damn it. So, just watch Holic. Just watch Chobits. This is just there. The characters don't really change much. Maybe that's something for like episode 40, but knowing that I have to go through like 30 to 40 episodes to get the good stuff, I don't know. It's just very meh. What wasn't meh was Psychopaths, Sinners of the System. I still remember the first episode I ever did for an anime review was Psychopaths. And I said that it was one of my favorite shows. Not top 10, but definitely in that sphere. And I watched season 2, and I hated it. And I was trying to get, like, season 3 or the other movies or the whatever, and I don't know if they ever dubbed them. Or if they did, I haven't seen them be dubbed, and I just forgot about it. Until a couple of days ago, I think they had a bumper on Crunchyroll saying they updated stuff, and I don't know if they just now dubbed it. More than likely they had it dubbed and I just hadn't paid attention, but I finally got back to it. And Psychopaths, again, fits that Ghost in the Shell standalone complex mode. They both kind of fit in that same sphere of sci-fi crime drama stuff. A lot of what Psychopaths does, it owes to Ghost in the Shell. It does it in a different way. I would say a more grittier way. Still procedural, but I would say this is a grittier form of what Ghost in the Shell is trying to do, very procedurally and straightforwardly, and thinking outside the box, that sort of thing. Sinners of the System is just, here's a character, in this case Mika, who's like very ambitious. I forgot just how ambitious and kind of pissed off she is all the time. But you get her, you get Ginoza doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this episode, and other episodes apparently focus on other characters. So there's like 3 of this, then there's a movie, then there's a 3rd season, and then I think there's something called Providence. So I'm trying to like make sure I'm not doing anything that isn't like, sometimes when you get a movie, it's basically just a recap of the animated show, and I don't want that. So fair warning, but this is at least kind of set after Psychopaths 2, so I already know I'm getting new ground here. But the idea that this crazy sanctuary for people with clouded views and high crime coefficients were basically slave labor, it's kind of cool. Seeing Mika's whole response to everything and, balancing out how do you make an hour-long movie, essentially. Because it's too small of a, it's basically a two and a half episodes. So can you do that kind of arc and make it make sense? And I think they did an okay job. You can kind of tell right away what's going on, but it's important that this was more about the characters' responses to everything, and that's what Psychopaths does do, is they focus on like crime coefficients and the Sybil system and how the Dominators affect that and what the Public Safety Bureau is supposed to do versus what it's not supposed to do. But then you also see the villainous side of things where they're manipulative assholes and they're not exactly on the right either. And Psychopath is good at, steering you in that direction because nobody's really a good person, even in the police. You just kind of have to understand there is a certain sort of justice involved. So you have to make the characters on the other side feel like irredeemable pieces of shit. And I say the first episode of this, because there's 3 different versions of these hour-long episodes, they do enough that it makes sense. I love exploring the Psychopath world because of what a crime coefficient is and what emotions do to people, because it is a cool thing you don't really get a lot of. You get the I'm emotional and I'm angry right now. You don't get the I'm angry to the point where I'm considered a criminal for life. And what that does to people. Like, will that go back and kill me? Will that ruin my life? Will that ruin my chances for promotions or jobs? Will I be ostracized from society? And Psychopaths goes into these extreme examples. But I'm kind of glad that I dumped Tsubasa because I'm not enjoying it, and then went into Psychopaths again, which I knew I was probably going to enjoy. Because even Psychopaths at its weakest still has some things it does that other shows don't do. So I'm kind of glad I made that switch. Again, this has nothing to do with spring stuff, but I wanted to bring that up because there is that thing. After a point, if you just feel like you're getting nicks and cuts and a death by 1,000 cuts and watching a show, you don't have to stick with it. And that's the same true whether I'm doing this or not. Not everything has to last an episode. Sometimes it lasts 10 seconds. Sometimes you last 10 episodes. But if you don't like a thing, you don't like a thing. But if you can stick with it, then that shows the mark of quality. But everybody has a different interpretation of what they're looking for out of a show. Tsubasa might be right up somebody's alley, but it really wasn't for me. So it worked well with a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about since I've been doing these bi-weekly reviews, is that if it doesn't fit the standard and you start once you start losing an interest in something, it is very hard to get it back because it's just the annoyances start to pile up. And I'll talk about that a lot when I get to Legend of Dragoon in a couple of months, is the annoyances start to pile up. Not to the point that I stopped because the annoyances came out way late, but, never be afraid of just admitting that you don't like a thing. Whose opinion matters? It's your opinion that matters. But anyway, that'll do for this episode. I do want to let everybody know that in a couple of weeks I'm going on vacation. I'll just upload an episode before then. So it'll probably be the spring or summer anime. If I get to anything for that week, I'll get to that. So that's the next update. I'll just load up what I have for that week before I go on vacation on the 10th and get back to it. But next week is Violet Evergarden. I've already got to get that episode prepped. So Bravely Second is in a few weeks after that. When in doubt, Public School Arc. And Legend of Dragoon in the middle of August, as I mentioned. Salty Ray. And then we'll be into September. So I'm staying very busy. And I'm doing a lot of good things. But I'm keeping up with these podcasts pretty damn well. And I just love keeping up with anime. It's the thing I like to watch a lot of. But hopefully I'll get to finish some of these by the time I get to my next update. But who knows? But that'll do it for me. And this is Citizen Strife signing off.